A lot of people saying that the Green Bay Packers are one of the worst 13-3 playoff teams of all time. But at least we're a playoff team. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and today we are going to be ranking the top 6, well, the only 6, NFC playoff teams. Now, before we get into that, I want to do a big shout out and thank you to everyone who has donated to Can Do Canines, which is a charity that is out of Minnesota that gives service dogs to people with disabilities, whether it's childhood autism, whether it is mobility issues, etc. We have raised over $1,300 for them. We're aiming to raise $3,000 so we can name one of the service dogs Aaron, after the video that was shown on Monday night in Minneapolis that showed Anthony Barr breaking Aaron Rodgers' collarbone and that thing in the newspaper that was also there. And so there's a little bit of jab at that Vikings newspaper, and it's also doing some really great stuff. So the link to donate is down in the description below, and all the money goes directly to them. They're a great organization. Also want to do a big shout out and thank you to Jimmy Kim, a brand new Patreon over at patreon.com/Tom Grossi Comedy. Joining that Aaron Rodgers tier. Much appreciated. Now let's get into it. Now, starting at number 6. So this would be the worst team, in my opinion, entering the NFC playoffs, and that is the 9-7 Philadelphia Eagles. Well, we had to have some team represent the NFC East, and while I do love a good dose of Cowboys tears as they go another 8-8 season under Jason Garrett, yeah, this Eagles team is decimated by injury. Miles Sanders just suffered another injury as well, but they've been on a hot streak as of late, and they've really kind of been epitomizing the phrase next man up. And so Wentz is playing well. You know, Sanders, who before he got hurt was playing really, really well. Thank you for that fantasy championship, by the way. And they're taking on the Seahawks in the wild card round, and obviously they're hosting a home game, and I think it's very possible that they can beat them, as the Seahawks are a beat-up team as well. And listen, the Eagles beat the Packers this year. It happened. It absolutely happened. And so, you know, this is one of those teams that I didn't pick the Eagles to go 2 years ago to the Super Bowl after Carson Wentz got hurt, but they got hot at the right time. Can they continue to do so? I honestly don't think so. I mean, they went into overtime with the Redskins. You know, the teams that they're beating aren't really great teams that they did to get into the playoffs, but they still made it to the dance. But I think as a whole, they are the worst team entering the NFC playoffs this year. Then heading on to number 5, you got the purple incarnations of Satan, the 10-6 Minnesota Vikings. Yeah, that team is night and day when they have Dalvin Cook. Obviously, I'm not even going to look at what happened on Sunday because they were playing their backups. It really didn't matter. But they need Dalvin Cook back, and the Packers game was a perfect representation of that, in that they suffered. That offense got shut out in the second half. Their offensive line continued to struggle to support Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins also missed some throws, and it's that offense that really concerns me. The defense could go either way. They're a hot and cold defense as well. The stats are there, but the actual playing is really not so great. Now, they're taking on the Saints in New Orleans, which might wind up being a massacre, but yeah, the Vikings, they have a tough road ahead if they're going to wind up getting to the Super Bowl. They have to play the Saints. Then if they win, they're going to have to take on the 49ers as well. So yeah, that's a big oof taking on there. And I think the Vikings, again, just have too many question marks at offensive line, staying healthy at running back for them to make a prolonged run. And plus, their schedule through the playoffs is a nightmare. Then, number 4, you have the 11-5 Seattle Seahawks. And the only reason why the Seahawks aren't above the next team is because of their injuries. They are decimated with injuries. Now, you had Homer, who was killing it as their running back last night. Of course, obviously the big story is Marshawn Lynch getting re-signed by the Seattle Seahawks. He did nothing in the first half. It took a while for him to get his legs underneath him. And then he started making some plays, of course, the dive across the goal line for the touchdown. But yeah, what concerns me the most about the Seahawks is that defense. That defense is just, they looked like paper. The 49ers were able to just do whatever they wanted with that team to march down the field. Every single time that Seahawks offense got a long, sustained drive going to finally put points on the board and only get within 4 or 5 points, 49ers were like, okay, I'll take that, thank you very much, and scored another touchdown. And so they obviously have the tenacity to come back and going up against a very good San Francisco 49ers team. I think they can still beat the Eagles, and then they will have a rematch most likely with the 49ers in the divisional round. But I don't know if they're going to be able to go further than that. Now, then again, this is a rubber match that would be between the Seahawks and the 49ers. Obviously, these rivalries within the division, those games could go either way. And so who knows? The Seahawks might be able to surprise some people and take out the 49ers. But right now, just because they're so damn injured, they're sitting at number 4. Then sitting at number 3, I have your 13-3 Green Bay Packers. Yep, clinched that first round bye, and we're an inch away from clinching the first seed, but the Seahawks had to go and ruin it. Now, what's going to happen is the first game of the Green Bay Packers playoff run is going to be Sunday night, January 12th at 6:40 p.m. Eastern. Oh, baby, it's gonna be cold. And if we're just playing the odds here, it's most likely we'll be taking on the Saints. Now, the Saints, I think, are a better football team than the Green Bay Packers right now. The Packers have been inconsistent. Their defense, though, has basically shut out opponents in the second half. The last 2 games, they've only allowed a total of 3 points, so that's pretty impressive. But the offense has been struggling mightily in both first halves of both of those last 2 games. And so they can't have these slow kind of starts against teams like the Saints because they're going to dominate them. But that being said, the fact that they're playing at least 1 game at Lambeau Field is a huge advantage, considering that a number of these teams that are here, the majority of them are either dome teams or playing in warm weather, besides obviously the Eagles and the Seahawks. And the Vikings, they playing in a dome, the Saints are playing in a dome, and the San Francisco 49ers are hanging out in freaking California. So, you know, this is, it's a good home field advantage that the Packers have, and I think it could definitely make a difference, and it could slow down that high-powered offense of teams like the Saints. So, I mean, the Packers definitely have a lot of work to do. They've been talking about winning ugly all the way to the Super Bowl. Well, they won ugly again yesterday, and now they just have to win ugly 2 more times. But, I mean, the road is most likely going to be, you know, against New Orleans at home, and if they get past them, they're most likely going to have to head to California again, where they got dominated by the San Francisco 49ers. So it ain't going to be easy. So Seahawks, if you wind up getting past the Eagles and you play the 49ers, beat them, please. Then, number 2, you have the 13-3 New Orleans Saints. Yep, we're inches away from a first-round bye, and the Saints absolutely dominated the Panthers in that final week, showing no mercy whatsoever. And they showed with the Titans game that they can play on the road as well. Obviously, playing in Tennessee is a very different place than playing in Lambeau Field. But the question is, you know, are they going to be able to take that high-powered offense, and are they going to be able to compete in Green Bay, which is most likely where they're going to have to go. Now, there's a lack of defensive teams that are here, right? The Saints are on and off with their defense. The 49ers, I mean, like, they had a really good defense, and they let up a lot of points. It's the same exact thing with the Seahawks, and even the Vikings have a tendency to give up some points. So I think that the Saints have one of the most high-powered offenses, if not the most high-powered offense within the playoffs this year. And so, considering there's a lack of, like, truly elite dominant defenses, you might see the Saints, they might have a pathway cleared to the Super Bowl if they're able to get past Lambeau Field. And then, finally, you got the number 1 team and the number 1 seed, the 13-3 San Francisco 49ers. They dominated the majority of, not only the season, but they dominated the majority of the game last night, and they slowly let the Seahawks creep back. I mean, they were outplaying them in every single facet. And that's a little bit concerning, but it is a tough place to play. It is a divisional game, but they've clinched home field advantage, and so the road is going to have to run through San Francisco. Now, that being said, I mean, like, you see, like, the Falcons beating them at home. They've had some close calls with some teams. But that being said, they're most likely going to be seeing the Seahawks again, like I said before. And I think that they could pretty much beat any single team in this NFC playoffs. Now, if I was a betting man, while I would love to see my Green Bay Packers in the NFC Championship game, you're most likely going to see a rematch of the Saints and 49ers. And while that was a classic shootout the first time, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see the same exact thing this time. It's just going to be a matter of, will it have a different finish? But either way, the 49ers, they locked up home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and they are clearly an amazing team. I hate to admit it, but yes, they are a very good football team. It's just a matter of, can that defense go back to being dominant? Can Nick Bosa, can he make a whole lot of trouble in that backfield? They were getting a ton of pressure on Russell Wilson last night. They're going to have to do that against some of these high-caliber offenses, whether it's the Saints or the Saints. Yeah, the Packers don't really have a high-caliber offense. It's just sad right now. But hey, 13-3. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. What are your rankings for the top 6 teams here in the NFC playoffs? Who do you got? We shall see. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. And a big shout and thank you all the Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. But we'll be knocking out the AFC tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.